I'm truly excited about presenting this session. One of the fundamental things, and I was listening to the panel conversation as well, there were some very broad and vibrant thoughts on AI today, what are some of the challenges to AGI, ASI, and I think through my presentation for next 15, 20 minutes, what I wanted to do was just talk about the things which is here and now, what generative AI can deliver, what are some of the challenges, and what are the considerations that you should have when you're building your applications using generative AI. So just to kickstart things, I think it's my firm belief that generative AI will be woven into all our applications. In fullness of time, it will be behind every click, every button that you press. There would be many occasions wherein you would know that you are interacting with the generative AI systems, but there will be many occasions wherein you'll not know. It's like invisible. And there are examples of that. And this is a slide which talks about the generative AI applications and how our customers in India are using AWS technologies to build generative AI. And I'm going to shift a little bit and not talk about game tech alone, but talk about two AI use cases that are built for India, because the discussion was all about India, so I just thought I'll continue with that flavor. The first example, and as you could see on the slides, these are customers across various industries, various use cases. The two that I'll pick up very quickly for your consideration is the first use case is India Mart. And as you would know, India Mart is the world's largest B2B marketplace. There are billions of products listed on their website. But 60% of their customers actually comes from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which do not understand English as well as customers from tier 1 cities would do. And they had this challenge of saying that, okay, how do I cater to these customers? They used our generative AI technology to launch a new property called hindi.indiamart.com. 5 million products were transliterated from English to Hindi. And when I say transliteration, you would understand what does it mean. So let's say an example of that could be women's hoodie, right? There is no equivalent Hindi word of a hoodie. It has to remain hoodie. Right? So doing AI to launch a new property to cater to audience is a massive innovation. The second example that I wanted to give is Ecom Express. Ecom Express had history of deliveries that they made over last 10 years or so. Successful one, unsuccessful one as well. So the unique challenge of India is that there is no specific address format that India follows. And it couldn't be near this place, near that, close to this. And they had this massive data of what shipments failed, what shipments succeeded. They trained a model, a generative AI model based on GPT technology, based on that data, and that improved miss routes by 6% for them. At their scale, that's a massive productivity improvement. They used our technology to train those models, and they have released an API called bulls.ai, so that everyone can benefit from it, right? So these are two examples of how Indian companies are leveraging or harnessing the potential of generative AI and AI using AWS. And as you think through developing your applications, there are three considerations that I wanted to lay in front of you. The first one is mix and match models. At early start of generative AI, there was this notion that one model or one company is going to win it all. And that's not true. There are models which are there, and this is just a representation of type of models that are there. And you would wonder why these many number of models are there. They're there because they can be classified into two categories, open source, closed source, but they excel at a specific task. They bring a unique value proposition. As an example, a model is purpose-built for converting text to images or text to videos or summarizing or reasoning. And there was a discussion in the panel about reasoning capabilities. Right? So to think that one model is going to be sufficient for all use cases is actually an erroneous thing. The second thing was this conventional thing of saying bigger is better. As you start training models, and there was some gentleman who was talking about scaling law, but there was this convention that as number of parameters, and this model is trained on 48 billion parameters, and hence this is the model to go, is also being challenged. The third reason, and this is a little bit of a fun fact, is models are getting smarter as well. And I'll give you an example. We have a model, and we have a generative AI offering called Bedrock, and one of the models that we support is called Claude, which is from this company called Anthropic. So after every model is released, there is a test that is done, which is called NIH test, and each model provider publishes NIH report. What NIH does is basically needle in a haystack test. Okay? The purpose of this test is to say that model has been trained on wide corpus of data, and which is haystack, a needle. Needle is inserted, which is completely unrelated to the information that the model has been trained on, to detect whether the model is able to reason out and give a correct answer. So that's called NIH test, and if you're interested, just go and find this out on web. Every model provider publishes this. So when Claude was being tested, Anthropic did a needle in a haystack test, just to look at the accuracy. But something very funny happened. So haystack in Claude was corporate data, code repositories, et cetera, and the needle that was inserted was, which is the most delicious pizza topping? And a hint was given that it is fig and goat cheese. So when the model was asked to say, okay, the hint has been given, and now you run a query to say, okay, which is the most delicious pizza topping? The model replied saying that the most delicious pizza topping is fig and goat cheese. But then the model went on to say something, exactly what my teenage daughter does. It seems you are testing me. You are asking me a question that I have not been trained on. It may be something that you are doing to test if I'm paying attention or not. I'm not saying it is AGI. I'm not saying it is ASI. AGI is not going to be a moment that's just going to be there and they say AGI has arrived. These are steps like that that will lead us to AGI. And your ability to harness multiple models based on your needs and your requirements becomes extremely important. So we released this capability called Amazon Bedrock. Amazon Bedrock provides a unified way, and I'll not get into too much of tech because that's going to take an enormous amount of time, a unified way that you can harness capabilities of multiple models without you requiring to do engineering effort. So today, if you're using Model X, you can use Model X, a variant of it, Model Y, and not change the API that is required to run inference. So your capability to exploit the right tool for the right job becomes very, very important. And Anthropic and Amazon Bedrock, whether it's Anthropic or other models, provides you capability of doing that. We also released, as part of our annual conference, which is called AWS reInvent, our own large language models, which is Amazon Nova. And you see there are 6 models that are there. 5 of them are available today, and again, micro, light, pro, they're trained for specific tasks, and they're also based on accuracy and speed. There is a combination of price also which is there, so that you can find again the right tool for right job. Moving on, the second thing that we have done with Bedrock, and this is something that we have recently announced, is how do you decide which model is good or not? How do you determine that? So instead of using manual efforts on your side to do that, we introduced this capability called intelligent prompt routing. What intelligent prompt routing will do is give you capability for Bedrock to go and run inference across multiple models, look at accuracy, look at factors like performance, latency, and cost, and give you a recommendation that this may be the best model for your use. Doing that without requiring efforts from you is a huge win. The second thing is, consistency, coherence, and control needs to be factored. And this has been our biggest learning. And I think one of the things that when the models start emanating was that people would think that they just put in a model doesn't require an engineering effort, and the model is going to solve all their business problems like that. Those customers were disappointed. And you hear of so many of the POCs failing for generative AI. And if you dive a little deeper and examine, the reason is the notion that I'm just going to pop in a model and model is going to solve everything is a misconceived notion. The first thing is think of models as Swiss cheese. There are areas of density, there are areas of sparsity. Models tend to provide best accuracy when it comes to area of density. Models tend to hallucinate when it comes to area of sparsity. And you would imagine which are those areas of sparsity. By far, it will be your data. The model hasn't been trained on your data, doesn't know your business, right? It's trained on wide corpus of public data, and that's where models hallucinate. So your ability to provide your data for models to make the right inference becomes extremely important for generative AI application. And it manifests itself in multiple ways. So data becomes a foundation, and as you think about it, some of the techies in the room would have known RAG and other frameworks, and we are kind of exploring this, and we provide multiple ways that we can enrich the model through your data, whether you use graph RAG, structured, unstructured data, making it easy for you to build your generative AI application. The second one is, and there was a lot of discussion on privacy, security, blah, blah, blah. So we have developed capabilities which are there. The two capabilities that I'd like to make a specific mention of is first is governance and control. That I think is foundational because you would want the model not to enrich itself based on your data. Security and privacy becomes foundational. It's your data, your asset, your IP, and you don't want model providers to benefit from it. At the same time, think of closed source model providers like Anthropic and others, including us. We have spent large amount of money, like other model providers, on building a model, training a model. Those model providers are not also very happy to share their IP with you and say, here is the model, go and do whatever you want to do. So it's like Bedrock enables you a capability that model provider and your data coexist, and think of it in a very abstract way, an escrow account. The model provider provides the model, you bring in your data, the model does not learn from the data. And you have got an API-based access. So that's security and privacy. The second one is guardrails. And you would have heard a lot of things on media that models spitted something which is inappropriate. How do you put guardrails? What are the things that you need to do? So we have introduced guardrails for Bedrock, wherein, again, with a very easy to use configuration, you can say, okay, if let's say a model is giving a response and the response contains this specific keyword, don't pass that inference, right? And it manifests in multiple ways. So I would examine, for the ones that are interested, look at guardrails for Bedrock. The one capability that we have recently introduced is automated reasoning checks. Okay. What it does is basically, if you, let's say, model is giving an output, how do you know it is accurate? Is it good intentions or best intentions? We need to put a mechanism. And one of the things that we have done is there is a mathematical model that we have built to gauge whether the response is accurate or not. And this is not a new invention. We actually released this capability for some of our security services when we were building cloud and we were expanding, because that was a question customer had. How do you develop a mathematical model to prove something in a way that is data-driven, whether it's security or generative AI? And we have announced that capability is called automated reasoning checks. The next one is model distillation. Again, going back to the point, if you understand distillation, it is about taking the specific intelligence from a large model and pass it on to smaller model, so that the smaller model can do the task as well as the large model would do. Why would you do that? Obviously for performance, cost, and latency reasons. So we have introduced capability in Bedrock to support model distillation as well. Prompt caching. Right? As you start, and I'm sure the ones that would have built generative AI application would have said, look, while it's great, but I need sustained time to see what is the ROI, and sometimes the TC of the overall solution becomes very, very high. We have introduced prompt caching so that not all the tokens go to the model for reasoning and for interpretation. I'm running fast because it's just got 5 minutes left. Last is future is agentic. And I think this is a somewhat broadly used and in certain ways abused term as well. Right? The ones that we have seen getting abused is thinking of it as a simple workflow. Models actually are, and especially when you look at reasoning capabilities, they're becoming very, very powerful, which means that now you can execute your workflow, which can be something as simple as define an objective, plan for it, execute, assess, and then come back. It's a very simple workflow, right? And that's one example of agentic implementation. We released 2 capabilities in Bedrock, which is first one is code interpretation, the second one is memory retention. Code interpretation is, many of you would have seen that models are not very good at mathematical calculation. Right? They don't do a great job. Right? But they're extremely good at producing code that can do that job. Right? So we introduced code interpretation capability. Think of it in a very simplistic fashion as a sandbox that the model will go and execute this task, generate the code, and in a sandbox environment, this is going to run and come back to you with the results. Right? The second capability that we introduced was memory retention. As you think through agents, you are thinking about more complex workflows. And the capability for model to retain information becomes very, very important as far as accuracy is concerned. So we introduced memory retention capability. We at reInvent announced multi-agent collaboration. So think of what multi-agents, and this is where the real capabilities of generative AI and agentic capabilities will surface. It can be something as simple as this. There is a, pardon me for using this term, master-slave agreement. So there is a master agent which kind of coordinates with slave agents, and the agents are going to come back to a master or an orchestrator who's going to give the response back. Or it can be something as complicated as this, wherein multiple agents collaborate or compete to run a task, and then you get your objectives. And that's where multi-agent orchestration capabilities will be the most powerful tool that you will have as far as your building your generative AI applications is concerned. So just to kind of summarize, 3 things. If you're building generative AI applications, number 1, mix and match model. Don't think that one model or one company is going to solve them all. Right? Harness the ecosystem. There is a lot of innovation that is happening, and your ability to harness that innovation in a simplistic form, removing the undifferentiated heavy lifting of you have to adjust to model nuances, prompts, etc., becomes important. Second one is your data is where your accuracy will come from. Your ability to harness your data in a secure and agile fashion along with the model is going to be foundational. Things like hallucination, etc., instead of you spending your time, let a technology handle it for you. Last but not the least, future is agentic. It's not workflow. Agents are going to evolve in a big way. Multi-agent orchestration is the future. Thanks for your patient listening. I will not be able to take any questions just for paucity of time, but we'll be around, and you can catch me if you want to if you have any questions. Thank you.
Satinder, we can take, thank you so much. We can take a couple of questions.
Okay, awesome.
Anyone has any question? There's a question that side. Can we have the microphone, please?
Thank you, Satinder. That was very informative. So my name is Arpan, and we are a software consulting company, already using Bedrock. And we are building a use case for a nationalized bank in India. So the challenge we are facing there, we cannot use anything hosted solution. we need to have everything self-hosted in their environment. I wanted to understand what kind of support and at a POC level AWS team can provide us to get the POC success. Because explaining a customer on a use case and getting a initial POC is a extremely difficult challenge when we are working in a regulated entity. So if you have any resources which we can talk to. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for your question. There are two parts to the question as I understand. The first part is, how do we spin it in their environment? And since you work with a public sector bank, the fact that it remains in India, security, privacy, that's the first part. And second is, how do we get POCs available? So let me start with the second one. We have generative AI trained partners, which are certified by AWS on their ability to go and develop applications. We provide very extensive support to them and through them to you to support POCs as well, right? So if you need more details, you can go to AWS website. You'll see generative AI competency partners. Feel free to reach out to them, or you can ping me on LinkedIn and I'm happy to direct you to the relevant folks who can help. The second one is exactly what Bedrock is built for, which was the first part of your question. With Bedrock being available in India, in one of our regions, all the data and model is hosted within the country. The model and Bedrock is hosted in customer's environment. Okay? In technical terms, we call it VPC. Think of it in an abstract term, customer's environment on the cloud. Right? It's hosted in their VPC. No data is sent outside their VPC. And that's a unique capability of Bedrock. And that's why you see financial services customers that were listed, Max New York Life, Credit B, right? These are entities that are regulated by RBI and are governed to the same laws as a bank would be, right? So I'll encourage you to, if you need more details, happy to chat offline, but this is exactly what Bedrock has been built for.
One last follow-up question.
Yep.
So we have seen the models, new models coming up like every day, like Llama will launch a new version of 70B. And we see, for a specific to India region, we see that models getting listed after a short gap of a time. So as an example, a new model has a new capabilities, but our ability to utilize those model has a gap of 2 to 3 months. Any idea how we can fast process that?
Yeah. While that is not universally true, there are many models that are launched in India region via Bedrock at the same time coinciding with global launch as well. But there may be some models which follow a phased deployment pattern. And the phased deployment pattern is there for a right reason. Sometimes you want to test how the model is behaving. While there is a lot of tests before you start rolling it out. Because there is this tendency on thinking that every time a new version is there, it is much better. On occasions it is, on occasions it may not be. What we are committed to, and we are reducing the timelines as much as possible to see that we maintain currency of all the models that are there globally versus what is there in India. But I'll also take this opportunity to remind you that most of the capabilities that I've talked through and most of the models are there, including Llama, including Mistral from open source. I'm just picking some Claude. Nova will be there shortly. It's not there. Stability AI. And we are constantly increasing the availability of these models and updating the currency.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satinder. Okay, we can take one last question to the right side. This is the last question. After this, we start with our panelists. They are waiting.
Hi, Satinder. Firstly, thank you so much for such an informative session. My name is Abhiram. I'm also from another fintech company. And my question to you is, in the space of fintech, one of the key challenges that we see is that there's always this push-pull between security and capability. If I want the capabilities of AI, I'm still worried about giving out my data. And given that I operate on razor-thin margins and with high level of secrecy, it's imperative that I feel truly confident. So how do you see this push-pull evolving in the near future? Because we've gone from a place where nobody was aware about AI to a place where everybody's like integrating it into their workflows with some concern. How do you see this evolving in the near future? And what can we do as stakeholders to, what can we do more as stakeholders to educate people in our teams, in our security teams and so on, that, hey, this is something that can be actually kosher for us?
So I'll keep my response really short, but I'm happy to have a detailed conversation. The first part of your question is this push-pull? I don't think so. It will go away, or it should go away, right? The fact that you operate in a regulated industry and you are worried about privacy and security of the data is the notion that you need to start consider when you're building your generative AI application. By no means, if you're not in a regulated industry, the data to every company is very, very unique to them, and it's an IP for them. So I don't think so that this push-pull will actually should go away. It's a very healthy thing. The second part of your question is actually the answer, which is education. And there are two parts to this. We have, and using some of the technical capabilities that I talked about, we have consolidated all of them into a white paper on how Bedrock can be used and address the security and privacy concern. I briefly talked about escrow account as a concept and how do you do it, but I didn't cover a lot of details like how do you ensure encryption of data. So I think those are the things that I'll encourage you to go and read. It's publicly available document, and we need to constantly educate. The example of Credit B was actually, and they've, I mean, if you see it's there in public domain as well, Credit B used generative AI capabilities to say that they get bunch of emails from their customers, and their ability to respond to them was dependent on human capability, human agents. But what are their customers seeking? Some of them are seeking information which is generic, some of them are seeking information which is very specific to them. Okay, so when is my next installment going to be due? When is this loan? Your ability to go and start responding to this means that you're dealing with the data that is regulated, that may be PI for a specific customer, and they've used Bedrock to deliver that capability. So they've gone public. I'll encourage you to just to kind of sum it up, I think education becomes the most important thing. And what we're doing with Bedrock is releasing set of white papers, which will help you see, okay, this is how I meet the compliance regulation requirements of my generative AI applications.
Thank you so much. Can we have a round of applause for Mr. Satinder?
Thank you.